So what happened this week? What could possibly have happened this week? I know you're wondering, what is Sal talking about? Well, if you're watching, you'll notice Jim Ward in the shot, which can only mean one thing.
This Week in History.
Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Middle Country Public Library podcast. I'm Sal DiVincenzo, here with my history buff colleague, Jim Ward.
How's it going?
How are you, Jim?
Good, how are you?
And again, it is This Week in History, and the week that we are talking about is the week that you're watching this, if you're watching this when it comes out, which is...
July 6th through 12th.
July 6th through 12th. I'm sure many things happened this week in history. Perhaps something with the Civil War. I don't know. It's just because Jim always brings Civil War with him.
Gotta say, there's not. If there is, there's not a lot.
Okay.
We missed the Battle of Gettysburg by 1 week.
We missed it by 1 week. I think we did that last year.
We did, yeah.
We're trying to mix it up a little bit. So if you're joining us on YouTube, hit the like and the subscribe button, because what's not to like about history? As well as, I have to let you know, I have no idea what he's going to talk about today. We sometimes I do, sometimes I have a couple things, but this week I just don't want to know anything. I don't. I rather not.
He likes it to be a surprise.
I like it to be a surprise. So why don't we jump on in, Jim?
Let's jump on in.
What do we got going on?
Well, we are in the midst of the 250th of the American Revolution, and July of 1775, July 6th. We have one day after restating their fidelity to King George III and wishing him a, quote, a long and prosperous reign in the Olive Branch Petition.
Yeah.
Congress sets forth the causes and necessity of their taking up arms against British authority in the American colonies. The Declaration also proclaimed their preference to, quote, die free men rather than live as slaves. At this point, Congress assumed that if the king could be merely made to understand what the Parliament and his ministers had done, he would rectify the situation and make the colonists equals in the British Empire.
Sure.
But he ended up siding with Parliament. So that eventually Congress, as we know, which would be next year, moved ahead to the Declaration of Independence in 1776.
So, it's interesting. I never thought about it, that it's the 250th anniversary of the beginning of the American Revolution.
Yep.
All right.
Lexington and Concord, April 19th, 1775.
Okay.
Started the whole thing.
All right.
Well, I mean, the causes leading up to it were from before, but that's when it definitely started.
Yep. Excellent. Very cool.
All right. July 6th, 1785. We move a little bit further.
Okay.
The Continental Congress establishes the dollar as the official currency of the newly established United States.
Look at that.
Paving the way for a national monetary system.
Wow.
The fledgling nation had just won the Revolutionary War, and the creation of a national currency was one of the first steps in stabilizing and establishing the new independent economy of the United States.
Wow. Very cool.
So little revolution.
So the dollar is celebrating an anniversary this week.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Cool.
We got a 250th for the dollar.
There you go.
Now we move a little bit, just 115 years ahead.
Oh, okay.
July 6th, 1900.
Okay.
Warren Earp, the youngest of the famous clan of gunfighting brothers, is murdered in an Arizona saloon. He reportedly had too much to drink at the headquarters saloon in Wilcox, Arizona.
Okay.
He began to abuse some of the customers, and a man named John Boyette killed him in a gunfight.
Oh, my goodness.
Later, Boyette was tried for murder and found innocent on the grounds that he acted in self-defense. And Earp, you remember his brother Wyatt Earp and that whole tombstone, the OK Corral.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I just saw that movie.
Did you?
I
for
just
the first
saw
time?
it for the first time.
Oh my God!
Maybe a month ago.
Tombstone with Kurt Russell.
Yes.
Oh, that is a great movie.
Spectacular
I
movie.
love that movie.
Yeah.
And the late Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday.
That's why I watched it.
Yeah.
That's exactly
why
I watched it.
He was phenomenal in that movie.
Because so it must have been more than a month. But he, people were talking about how great he was in that film. And I said, all right, you know what? I'm gonna take a look at it.
Yeah.
And see what
And
it's all about.
he was great.
It was fantastic.
I'm your Huckleberry. That was a great movie.
Awesome.
All right. July 6, 1933, Major League Baseball's first All-Star game took place at Chicago's Comiskey Park.
Oh, wow.
It was the brainchild of a determined sports editor. It was designed to bolster the sport and improve its reputation during the darkest days of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
It was originally billed as a one-time Game of the Century,
Oh, my goodness.
which has now, of course, become a permanent
Annual.
and much-loved annual event.
Yeah, exactly.
So on July 6th, 47,595 fans packed into the park where some of baseball's most historic moments had taken place. The game, which ended in a 4-2 victory by the American League, did not disappoint, thrilling the crowd with its star-studded roster, as it always does when you have all those great players together.
Yeah.
Built-in drama, unprecedented matchups. Indeed, for many of the players, this was the first chance that they were able to meet others from the opposite league.
Okay.
So it kind of brought the players together.
Yeah.
And I believe, where was it? Since then, it's become an annual fixture of the baseball season, bringing together the most beloved players every year, with the exception of 1945, when it was canceled due to wartime travel restrictions.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the first All-Star game.
The first All-Star game. I wonder how much they charged for the
probably-
first All-Star
like a
game.
quarter or
because
something. I don't know.
my wife said, this summer we should go see a baseball game.
Nice.
Not to say that the Ducks is not a real baseball game, but like a major
League, yeah.
big stadium, baseball game. So I was looking into Citi Field, and that's because it was the closest.
It's also easier to get to. You can park and stuff. Yeah.
That's expensive. I don't know. It's
What, to go to
a baseball game.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't been to a game in a while.
Decent seats, you're talking over $100 a person.
It's a little
And then
nuts.
you have the meals and whatnot, and the parking.
Well, Juan Soto got how many millions of dollars as part of his
tell ya.
deal? I don't know. Someone's got to pay for that.
Yeah, so like I said, I started looking at the Ducks games, because they're like $20
Yeah. And sometimes you have former major league players playing in those games.
Exactly.
So why not?
All right. Very good.
Let's see. So July 6, 1942, in Nazi-occupied Holland, 13-year-old Jewish diarist Anne Frank and her family are forced to take refuge in a secret sealed-off area in an Amsterdam warehouse. The day before, her sister Margot had received a call-up notice that she was going to be deported to a Nazi work camp, as they called it. So on July 6, fearing the deportation, Anne Frank's father approached his Austrian-born bookkeeper, Miep Gies, and asked if he could hide his family. They agreed, and they risked their own lives to smuggle food, supplies, and news of the outside world into the so-called secret annex, whose entrance was hidden by a movable bookcase.
Yeah.
And then on August 4th, 1944, just 2 months after the successful Allied landings at Normandy, the annex was discovered.
Okay.
And the Franks were sent to a Nazi concentration camp, along with 2 of the Christians who helped shelter them. And Anne and the other persons in hiding ended up at the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland. And in early 1945, Anne moved with her sister Margot to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in Germany. And the 2 sisters caught typhus and died.
Yeah.
So very sad. Very sad.
Very sad. And I think I might have mentioned this before, but I have not been inside, but I've been outside of the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's got to be something.
It's a big, huge museum now. And
so that's the not where she was hiding. That was her home beforehand?
No, where she was hiding.
Oh, it was where she was hiding. Okay. Okay. That's got to be very moving to go to.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Moving on to July 7th. Right? That was July 6th still? Yep. July 7th. For the first time in U.S. history, the House of Representatives exercises its constitutional power of impeachment and votes to charge Senator William Blount of Tennessee with a high misdemeanor entirely inconsistent with his duty and trust as a senator.
Oh, my goodness.
So in 1790, George Washington appointed him as governor of the territory of the river of the south of the river Ohio, now known as Tennessee. He had actually had financial problems, and that led him to enter into a conspiracy with British officers to enlist frontiersmen and Cherokee Indians to assist the British in conquering parts of Spanish Florida
Yeah.
and Louisiana. But before the conspiracy was uncovered, Blunt presided over the Tennessee Constitutional Convention and then became the state's first U.S. senator. The plot was revealed in 1797, and on July 7th, they voted to impeach him. The next day, the Senate voted by 2/3 majority to expel him.
Oh, my goodness.
And on December 17th, 1798, the Senate exercised its sole power to try all impeachments as granted by the Constitution. And so there was a trial. As vice president, Thomas Jefferson presided over the impeachment trial, and after 2 months, Jefferson and the Senate dismissed the charges.
After all that.
After all that, determining that the Senate had no jurisdiction over its own members beyond expelling them.
Okay.
So that ended up causing nothing after that.
Yeah.
But the constitutional conundrum of conducting a trial of an impeached senator has not been resolved yet. So after all these years, has not been resolved.
Still don't know what to do.
So
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it checks out.
It checks out.
So July 7th, 1865, we're in Civil War territory here.
Oh, now
all
there
right.
we go.
So Abraham Lincoln was shot April 14th of that year, died April 15th.
Okay.
And of course, there was a conspiracy. I'm not sure if a lot of people know that. It was not just John Wilkes Booth. You had Lewis Powell, who was trying to kill William Seward, the Secretary of State.
Oh, my goodness.
Did not succeed.
Did not know that.
George Atzerodt was tasked with killing the Vice President, Andrew Johnson. He lost his nerve and ended up not going through with it.
Okay.
Booth and the others would meet at a boarding house owned by Mary Surratt in Washington because her son John Surratt Jr. was part of the Confederate underground. And so after the Lincoln assassination, it came to the knowledge of authorities that the conspirators had met at her boarding house. And so as a result, Mary Surratt was charged with being part of the conspiracy to kill the president and others.
Yeah.
And so on July 7th of 1865, she was executed for her role as conspirator in Abraham Lincoln's assassination, and she was the first woman to be put to death by the U.S. government.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So, and on the day of the assassination, Booth had asked Surratt to deliver a package to actually her tavern in Surrattsville, Maryland. It's now called Clinton, Maryland. And I guess it included field glasses, rifles, and so it kind of connects her a little bit to it because that was the first stop that Booth and Harold made after they escaped Washington. Louis Weichman, one of the alleged conspirators who delivered the package with Surratt, was released after he testified against her. He later claimed that the government forced him to testify and that it plagued his conscience for the rest of his life. And people were trying to petition Andrew Johnson to pardon her and to stop it, but he ended up not giving any order, and she was executed along.
That's something I didn't know about.
With the others. Great movie for this if you're interested in the Mary Surratt thing. The Conspirator. I think it's called. It's Robert Redford directed it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, great film. Great film.
Can you tell what Jimmy's passionate about? I can't imagine what he's passionate about.
This is my jam. All right, we're going to move about 65 years into the future. July 7th, 1930, construction begins on the future site of the Hoover Dam.
Oh, yeah.
Over the next 5 years, a total of 21,000 men would work ceaselessly to produce what would be the largest dam of its time. It only took 5 years to build, but the construction was nearly 30 years in the making. It started with a engineering report in 1902, and then the final plans were 1922, and then it just kept going. But Herbert Hoover, he was the Secretary of Commerce in 1921. He devoted himself to the erection of the high dam in Boulder Canyon. It would provide essential flood control, prevent damage to downstream farming communities, and it would also expand irrigation farming in the desert as well. So thank God for the Hoover Dam. Then
have you been?
No, I haven't been out that far yet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I got to get there.
It's pretty remarkable.
It's definitely something I'd like to get to one day.
Because you're driving through the desert for a little bit, and then you come over kind of around the corner, and you see like this big, huge thing of water, and then like wow.
My experience with the Hoover Dam is watching Clark Griswold in Vegas Vacation climbing along the Hoover Dam and trying not to fall. That's literally my experience with the Hoover Dam.
Funny.
All right, July 7th, 1976. For the first time in history, women are enrolled at the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York.
Again, thinking about like how relatively recent that is. Yeah,
it's kind of astonishing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But on May 28th, 1980, 62 of these female cadets graduated and were commissioned as second lieutenants. So
thank you
very
for your
good
service.
for that. Absolutely. Thank you. July 7th, 1981.
Okay.
President Ronald Reagan announces his intention to nominate Sandra Day O'Connor, an Arizona Court of Appeals judge, to be the first woman Supreme Court justice in U.S. history.
Fantastic.
Pending her clearing of FBI background
there you
checks.
Go. Yes.
So there was that a great event.
Spy.
Let's see. July 8th. We're moving on to July 8th now. 1950. Day after the UN Security Council recommended that all UN forces in Korea be placed under the command of the U.S. military. General Douglas MacArthur is appointed the head of the United Nations Command by President Harry S. Truman. And it was later on when China eventually did intervene that President Truman, fearing the Cold War implications of the expanded war in the Far East, he refused to bomb China, which is understandable. MacArthur then publicly threatened to escalate hostilities with China in defiance of Truman's stated war policy, which led Truman to fire him on April 11th, 1951. So, kind of got what you were asking for there.
Exactly.
July 8th, 1951, Paris, this capital city of France, celebrated its 2000th anniversary.
2000th anniversary.
Although a few more candles could have been technically required for the birthday cake because the City of Lights was most likely founded around 250 BC.
Wow.
So give or take.
Give or take. Yeah.
And today it's home to 2 million residents with an additional 10 million people living in the surrounding metropolitan area.
Yeah. We're getting all excited about the United States 250th.
And they're like 2,000 years.
Yeah, and we're just babies.
We're the babies on the world stage. Let's see. July 8th, 1959, Major Dale R. Buis and Master Sergeant Chester M. Obnin became the first Americans killed in the American phase of the Vietnam War when guerrillas struck a military assistance advisory group compound. They had arrived on November 1st, 1955, and so they were, I guess, technically the first killed in the Vietnam War prior to the actual going in full on. Let's see, another Vietnam one. July 8th, 1969, a battalion of the U.S. 9th Infantry Division left Saigon in the initial withdrawal of U.S. troops. There would be 14 more increments in the withdrawal, but the last troops did not leave until after the Paris Peace Accords in January, after it was signed in January 1973. In fact, I think my birthday, well, I wasn't alive then, but my birthday, I think, was the last withdrawal of combat troops, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what I read. So
it's over 50 years ago at this point.
Moving on, July 8th, 2000, Venus Williams wins at Wimbledon for the first time.
For the first time.
That's where it began.
The beginning of all the winning.
All the winning, yeah. It's like she just kept going.
She just kept going.
Let me see. Her victory over defending champion Lindsay Davenport, I remember that name, made Williams the first black female Wimbledon champion since Althea Gibson won back-to-back titles in 57 and 58. She would become a champion women's tennis player with 7 Grand Slam singles titles, 16 Grand Slam doubles titles, and 4 Olympic gold medals. And she and her sister Serena are considered 2 of the greatest tennis players of all time.
Legends.
And we got to watch them play.
We got to see them.
Memories.
In our lifetime, we got to see that. Yeah, it's awesome. Very cool.
Let's see. July 9th, 1846, an American naval captain occupies the small settlement of, I hope I'm saying this right,
Here we go.
Yerba Buena,
a
site that would later be renamed San Francisco.
San Francisco treat.
Rice-a-roni. Shortly after the Mexican War began, U.S. Captain John Montgomery sailed his warship into San Francisco Bay, and he anchored his just off the settlement there.
Mm-hmm.
And on July 9th, 1846, he led a party of Marines and sailors ashore. They met no resistance, claimed the settlement for the United States, raised the flag, and the following year it was renamed San Francisco.
Bob's your uncle.
What's that?
I said, Bob's your uncle. It's America.
And what would happen a year or two later? The gold rush.
The gold rush.
So what a great time to be over in San Francisco.
That shiny thing over there.
Yeah. little mineral deposits,
shiny things over there. Yeah.
Let's see. July 9th, 1850, after only 16 months in office, President Zachary Taylor dies after a brief illness. Yeah. The exact cause is still disputed by historians.
This is true, right?
Yeah. He on a scorching 4th of July in Washington, D.C., Taylor attended festivities at the newly dedicated grounds upon the Washington Monument that would be erected. According to several sources, he gulped down a large quantity of cherries and iced milk and then returned to the White House, and then where he then quenched his thirst with several glasses of water. He was a very thirsty guy, apparently.
It's hot. It was a hot day.
Outbreaks of cholera, a deadly disease caused by bacteria, occurred frequently during the summer months, especially in hot, humid Washington. Yeah. And the bacteria were most likely present in the water or ice milk that Taylor drank. And those sources have claimed that Taylor died of gastroenteritis caused by the highly acidic cherries combined with the fresh milk. But it appears that no one suggested foul play, even though Taylor opposed secession and vowed to personally lead a military attack against any state that threatened to secede.
Yeah. We don't know.
He did die on the evening of July 9th. And his vice president, Millard Fillmore, was sworn in as the new president the next day.
I don't know. Sounds kind of
fishy, right?
Sus.
I kind of remember something on the History Channel where they said that they exhumed his body.
Okay.
And they were able to, I guess, determine that he wasn't poisoned or something. Right. I swear I saw something about that.
Such a long time. I don't know. All his organs are gone at this point, right?
Yeah, I don't know how they. Yeah. I'm sure there's some scientific way they can do it,
I just think it's a very strange combination. I don't know if I do the cherries and the iced milk.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That is a lot. Isn't it?
I wouldn't do that now.
No,
with technology and no bacteria and washing them very well. I'd do cherry ice cream.
Yeah,
right.
I just feel like cherries and milk might not be a good combo.
No.
Even if it doesn't kill you.
Stay away from the cherries and the milk this summer, folks.
Yes. Have them separate.
Have them separated out, yeah.
Let's see. July 9th, it's 1971, 4 miles south of the demilitarized zone in Vietnam. About 500 troops of the 1st Brigade, 5th Mechanized, God, I can't speak today. Yeah. Mechanized Division turn over Fire Base Charlie 2 to Saigon troops. This was part of President Richard Nixon's Vietnamization policy, which had been announced at the June 1969 conference at Midway Island. Under the program, the United States initiated a comprehensive effort to increase the combat capabilities of the South Vietnamese. As they became more capable, responsibility for the fighting was gradually transferred from the U.S. forces to South Vietnam, and then there would be a gradual withdrawal of U.S. forces. Yeah. So that was on that day.
This is like a Vietnam War heavy.
A little bit, yeah, right? I know there was a bunch of stuff from Vietnam, yeah. Now we move on to July 10th, 1893.
Okay.
Trailblazing physician Daniel Hale Williams successfully performs one of the world's first open heart surgeries at Providence Hospital in Chicago. And not only is he a pioneer of the procedure, he's one of just 3 African-American physicians practicing in Chicago at a time when many white-run hospitals refused to treat black patients, much less hire black doctors. And on the evening of July 9th, 1893, a 24-year-old named James Cornish entered the hospital with a stab wound to the chest. The next morning, Williams examined the wound and found that Cornish's pericardium, the sac surrounding the heart, was torn, and he sutured the tear with catgut. You know what that is? It's like from
Catgut.
sheep and stuff like that. Yeah.
Like
and they use it for medical sutures. Yeah.
Back then they did. I
mean, I hope not now, but
you know. They probably have something synthetic now is what they have.
But the procedure was successful. Cornish left the hospital on August 30th as one of the first people to survive open heart surgery.
Nice.
And he went on to live 20 more years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So thank you, Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Doc.
Yeah. Well done.
Well done.
July 10th, 1925, in Dayton, Tennessee, the so-called Scopes monkey trial begins with John Thomas Scopes, a young high school science teacher, accused of teaching evolution in violation of Tennessee state law. It had been passed in March, made it a misdemeanor punishable by fine to teach any theory that denies the story of the divine creation of man as taught in the Bible, and to teach instead that man has descended from a lower order of animals, as it's quoted as saying. So Scopes had conspired to get charged with this violation, and after his arrest, the aide of the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, organized his defense. Hearing of this coordinated attack on Christian fundamentalism, William Jennings Bryan, three-time Democratic presidential candidate, volunteered to assist with the prosecution. And soon after, the great attorney Clarence Darrow agreed to join the ACLU in the defense, and the stage was set for one of the most famous trials in U.S. history. And after 9 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned with a guilty verdict, and Ralston ordered Scopes to pay a fine of $100, the minimum that the law allowed.
That's funny.
Although Bryan had won the case, he had been publicly humiliated, and his fundamentalist beliefs had been disgraced. 5 days later, on July 26th, he lay down for a nap and never woke up.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So it must have taken its toll on him, that whole trial.
Did we do a History Bites? Did you
I think
do a
we
History
did.
Bites?
Yeah, I think I did
History
do one.
Bites out there.
Yeah, it's somewhere on there.
It's somewhere in there.
Somewhere in that playlist.
Been doing a long time.
What are we up to? 118 episodes? Something like that. So give it a gander. Let's see. July 10th, 1940, the Germans begin the first in a long series of bombing raids against Great Britain, known as the Battle of Britain, which will last 3.5 months.
Oof.
Yeah. Then July 11th, 1804, one of the most famous duels in American history, Vice President Aaron Burr fatally shoots his longtime political antagonist, Alexander Hamilton. There you go. Hamilton, a leading Federalist and chief architect of America's political economy, died the following day.
Wow, that was this week, huh?
Yeah, July 11th, 1804.
Wow.
In, what was it, Weehawken? Was it Weehawken?
It was in New Jersey.
Somewhere.
Yeah,
it was like literally just
like
across
weird,
the Hudson, I think.
Like a weird spot that you wouldn't think,
Right? Yeah.
The field, the special field that they...
I wonder, I'm sure it's, they got a plaque
I'm sure
somewhere.
they got something.
Yeah.
Wow.
July 11th, 1914, in his major league debut, George Herman Babe Ruth pitches 7 strong innings to lead the Boston Red Sox over the Cleveland Indians 4-3. To the great dismay of Boston fans, Ruth's contract was sold to the New York Yankees before the 1920 season by Red Sox owner Harry Frazee so that Frazee could finance the musical No No Nanette. Did you ever know that?
No, I didn't. Yeah.
Ruth switched to the outfield with the Yankees and hit more home runs than the entire Red Sox team in 10 of the next 12 seasons. And the Sultan of Swat, or the Bambino as he was called, was the greatest gate attraction in baseball until his retirement in 1935.
So he started as a pitcher? Mm-hmm. Wow.
He was signed by the Baltimore Orioles, and then sold to Boston.
Is it pretty rare for a pitcher to be such a good hitter? Or not necessarily.
Well, I don't know. I'm not too familiar of pitchers that were also great hitters.
Nowadays I feel like like the American League.
Well, what's that guy in Los Angeles now?
The pitchers don't.
What's his name? The great Japanese player, and is he a pitcher too, or is he just
maybe?
He's a great hitter. I know. I thought he was a pitcher too.
I'm not up. The last time I watched baseball was Keith Hernandez. So.
Oh wow! And you know what?
Darryl Strawberry.
Maybe we'll do a History Bites on that one next year.
Yeah.
During his career with the Yankees, the team won 4 World Series, 7 American League pennants, and after getting rid of Booth, the Red Sox did not win the World Series again until 2004, 86 years
see that?
After they had last won. And it was called The Curse of the Bambino.
The Curse of the Bambino.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do we got?
Don't mess with Babe Ruth.
No, Babe Ruth will come back to haunt you.
Exactly, yeah.
July 11th, 1944, Count Claus von Stauffenberg. I don't know if I'm saying that right. A German army officer transports a bomb to Adolf Hitler's headquarters in, you know what? I'm just going to say Bavaria because the previous word I can't say.
In Bavaria.
With the intention of assassinating him. So he was summoned to report to Hitler on the current military situation. His plan was to use the bomb, but because Hermann Göring and Heinrich Himmler, they were also considered crucial targets. They were not present at the meeting. So he didn't go through with it, and Hitler was called away to his headquarters, and so it never happened.
Never happened.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
But that would come about a little under a year before the war officially ended in Europe.
Wow.
So would have been nice to have
been interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
July 11th, 1995, 2 decades after the fall of Saigon, President Bill Clinton establishes full diplomatic relations with Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yep.
Talking about Vietnam.
Yeah, citing Vietnamese cooperation in accounting for 2,238 Americans still listed as missing in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And all right, we're moving on to July 12th, 1984.
Okay.
Walter Mondale, the leading Democratic presidential candidate, announces that he's chosen Representative Geraldine Ferraro of New York as his running mate. Ferraro, a daughter of Italian immigrants, had previously gained recognition as a vocal advocate of women's rights in Congress, and she would become the first female vice presidential candidate to represent a major party.
Nice.
So 1984.
And a New Yorker.
New York. Yeah. July 2nd, 1862.
Okay.
We're in the Civil War now.
All right, yes.
President Abraham Lincoln signs into law a measure calling for the awarding of the U.S. Army Medal of Honor in the name of Congress to, quote, to such non-commissioned officers and privates as shall most distinguish themselves by their gallantry in action and other soldier-like qualities during the present insurrection. In 1863, the Medal of Honor was made a permanent military decoration available to all members, including commissioned officers of the U.S. military. It was conferred upon those that who have distinguished themselves in actual combat at risk of life beyond the call of duty.
Wow.
So that was 1862.
1862.
And then let's finish on this one.
Okay.
July 12th, 1957, Dwight D. Eisenhower becomes the first president to ride in the newest advance in aviation technology.
Oh, a jet? Is it Air Force One?
The helicopter, Marine One.
Oh, Marine One.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow.
It was an experimental type thing since like 1947.
Yeah.
But later it was considered being used for a short official trips to and from the White House.
Nice.
And he suggested the idea to the Secret Service, who approved that new mode of transportation, seeing it as safer and more efficient than the traditional limousine.
All right.
And the one that he used during his second term was a Bell UH-13J Sioux that he flew to the presidential retreat at Camp David and to his farm in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
So,
he had a farm in Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
When you go to Gettysburg, you go to that visitor center there, and you can arrange to have a shuttle taken to it. And that is all I got.
That is This Week in History.
Yep.
Look at that. That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So we hope you enjoyed this week's history episode. If you want to listen or watch older episodes, you can actually go to our website, mcplpodcast.com. In the upper right-hand corner is a little magnifying glass.
Yep.
You click on that. You type in This Week in History, and you'll see all of This Week in Histories that we've done over the years.
Yep.
Over the years.
Yeah.
And we mentioned History Bites before. Yep. I want to mention it again here on the channel if you're watching on YouTube. And remember, like and subscribe because we have other things on here besides us. We have something called History Bites. Yep. It's about once a month. If there's something special, it's twice. But it's basically Jim or one of our colleagues does a little narration. It's a little 10-minute, little between 10 and 12 minutes of information on one subject. Yeah.
And it's different topics. I like to get different people involved who have an interest in different topics that I might not do. So, it's a nice time.
It's a nice time, yeah. So check those out.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us this week. For Jim Ward, I'm Sal DiVincenzo. We'll see you on the next show.